this video, we're going to talk about the absolute best settings for the brand new DJI FLIP and how you can get cinematic footage out of this incredible drone. But this time, there's going to be a little bit of a twist to this settings video. We're not going to do it with any of the DJI controllers because the DJI FLIP offers a new feature similar to the DJI Neo where it can be fully controlled with your phone. So if you were sold on that idea when you bought this drone and you didn't get the controller, well, don't worry. I'm going to show you how to get the best cinematic settings out of this drone because the camera is honestly incredible. You get the same quality as the DJI Mini 4 Pro just using your phone and nothing else. Okay, so if you bought the DJI FLIP with just the drone, turning it on is really simple. All you do is you just flip out all of the propellers and the drone should turn on automatically. Okay, so let's get right into the app. So as soon as you connect the DJI FLIP to the DJI Fly app, this is the first thing you're gonna see, and it's actually a preview of what the drone is seeing in real time. And this is where our first bit of control comes in. You're gonna notice that there's a little slider which you can move up and down to control the tilt angle of the gimbal. Now, I like to keep this at around 10 degrees, and there's no real answer to this or real correct answer to this. You can set it to whatever you're comfortable with, but I like to set it at 10 degrees. Next up, the mode of the drone is going to be very likely set to follow by default, and this is where we're going to start messing around with the drone settings. You want to tap that to reveal this drop down menu, and then you want to go ahead and you want to click manual control. This is going to give you a controller view of the drone as soon as you take off, so you'll be able to control the drone using just your phone. Now, above the takeoff button, you're going to notice 3 separate buttons, which we'll get into in a second. The middle one is to start recording. The one to the left of that actually switches you between photo and video mode. So if I tap that, now I'm in photo mode, and if I tap it again, now I'm back in video mode. And the last icon on the right allows you to record audio from your mobile device when the drone is in flight. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. It's not actually the drone that's recording audio, it's your phone that's recording the audio. So if you want to speak or do a voiceover while you're flying, you can do that using this feature. And finally, underneath the takeoff button is where we have all of our settings that we're going to mess with for the specific video settings. So if I go ahead and I tap on that, you're going to have resolution, frame rate, color profile, and your encoding format, all of which we're going to go through right now. So first up, we have our resolution. The highest resolution that the DJI FLIP can shoot in is 4K. So we're going to set our resolution to 4K. This one is pretty simple. Next up, we have our frame rate, and surprisingly in this mode, there are plenty of frame rates for you to pick from depending on what kind of shot you want to get. Now, me personally, something you might have noticed, there's no option to change shutter speed or ISO or anything like that when you're flying from your phone. So I actually recommend that you use 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second is the exact frame rate that I use for the DJI FLIP launch campaign for all of the example videos, and everything looks buttery smooth. If you edit in a 24 frames per second timeline, you can always drop your video in and just slow it down to about 80% and it still looks great. But 30 frames per second is pretty much the standard for all social media video use, which is where I imagine videos from the DJI FLIP will be used. So I recommend to everybody, including myself, to use 30 frames per second on the DJI FLIP. Next up, we have the color profile. Now, by default, it's going to be set to normal, but I encourage all of you over time to change this over to D-Log-M. Now, D-Log-M is a flat color profile, but it is 10-bit, meaning that you can push the colors a lot further in post and get some really good looking images, and it's really that secret sauce that will set your footage apart. It's how creators get their footage to look so good and maybe a little bit different than real life at times. Now, the downside in switching to 10-bit log and using D-Log-M is that you obviously need to know how to color grade. And if you don't know how to do that, that's where this video sponsor comes in. And this video is sponsored by Motion Array. Now, if you've been around this channel for a while, you'll know that Motion Array is a long-standing sponsor. And the reason for that is that I truly believe in the product that they put out. And it's a service that I really wish that was around when I first started my creator and my YouTube journey, because the tools that they have would have infinitely helped me in getting better as a video editor, especially their brand new LUT library. And they actually have so many LUTs to pick from, it's insane. Their library is so extensive and it really caters to any kind of look that you're looking for. When I first started color grading, I felt overwhelmed and intimidated by all of the LUTs that were out there from all of my favorite creators, and I wasn't really sure if I should purchase some, if any, and which ones would look good on my footage. Which is the great thing about Motion Array. You can go through this entire library and really watch all of these example videos that show you how these LUTs will affect your footage and download the one that's right just for you. I actually edited this entire video for the DJI FLIP release campaign using the LUTs from the motion array library. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and you check it out. And if you're looking to save a few extra bucks, there will be a link in the description below. Once again, huge thanks to Motion Array for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the settings for the DJI FLIP. Okay, now getting back to the settings for the DJI FLIP, right under D-Log M, you're gonna notice this little toggle. Now yours should be in English. I have a pre-production DJI Fly, which is why mine is in Chinese. I'm also on a developer app, but the toggle will let you turn on and off the ability to see what the transformation LUT will look like once it's applied. It's called Color Display Assist, I believe. Anyways, you always want this to be turned on because you'll see exactly what your final footage is going to look like. Also, if you want the transformation LUT from DJI to convert D-Log M, you can find it on their website, and I'll also leave a link in the description below for you to go download it easily and convert your footage. And finally, in D-Log M, the only encoding format you have is H.265, so that's the one we're going to be sticking with. Okay, cool. Now, once you have your camera settings set up in your manual control mode, if you go ahead and you hit the drop down and you change to any other mode like follow, droning, or circle, you're actually going to notice that all of the camera settings are gone. So for you to go ahead and change your camera settings in these modes, you're going to want to go ahead and click settings in the bottom right, and you're going to notice there's a different section for camera settings, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to tap video. And over here in these modes, you're going to notice that the settings are exactly the same as which I just showed you, but the frame rate is limited to 30 frames per second. You can't do anything else. So if you're already shooting at 30 frames per second in manual camera mode, this will be really great because you can go ahead and you can match frame rates from different shots, which is also another reason why I recommend that you shoot in 30 frames per second in the DJI FLIP. Okay, cool. Now that we know how to change all of our video settings, let's go ahead and focus on photo settings. So we're going to change back to manual control. We're going to go ahead and hit this toggle to change over to photo settings. And now you're going to notice that all of the settings at the bottom where it says JPEG, 16:9, and 12 megapixels are photo specific. So we're going to go ahead and hit all of the lever icons, and it's going to pull up this menu for you to go ahead and change your photo settings. Now by default, it's set to JPEG, and some people will prefer JPEG. I personally shoot all of my photos in RAW because that gives me the most flexibility to edit them later, and I recommend you do the same thing. You can go ahead and you can change it over to RAW. You can do JPEG plus RAW, just keep in mind that it takes up more space, and I personally almost never use the JPEGs, so for me RAW works out fine. But if you want a backup copy of the photo in JPEG as well, feel free to pick JPEG plus RAW. Next up, we want to change our aspect ratio from 16:9 to 4:3, and this is going to allow us to use the whole sensor on the DJI FLIP and capture as much information and much detail as possible on the sensor, and then we can crop however we want in post. But for me personally, I want to be able to capture everything that the sensor sees, which is why I pick 4:3. And then finally, this one should be a no-brainer. We're going to change our photo resolution from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels because, well, the photos just have more detail in 48 megapixels, and you want to try and maximize the best quality and the best settings that you can get out of the DJI FLIP. So I recommend use 48 megapixels. Now, one final thing I want to mention before we sign off on this video is some of the additional settings that are going to be unique to each different AI mode. So follow, droning, circle, rocket, etc. And if you just tap the settings icon at the bottom with all the gears, each of those modes is going to have their own unique settings. Now, me personally, I leave all of these on default, and it'll be different things like distance and height and how far you want the automatic mode to go. Personally, I just leave them all on default. If you want to go ahead and play around with these to suit a specific shot or your specific style, feel free to go ahead, but for full transparency, I leave all of these on default. And that's it. Those are all the settings that you need to change on the brand new DJI FLIP to get the best possible footage out of this drone. And honestly, I'm really excited that DJI is moving towards these kind of drones where you don't need an actual controller and you can just do everything from your phone. It's super convenient for those that want to carry the drone for travel. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys got what you were looking for. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, keep creating.